Welcome to my channel, Dark Whispers, where the lights flicker for a reason, and some roads never end no matter how far you drive. Tonight's story is called Mile Marker 187. Turn your lights down, lock your doors and listen close. Because this one happened on the road between Barstow and Needles, and they say if you drive that stretch after midnight, you might see her too. I was driving east on Interstate 40 somewhere past Ludlow when my phone died for the second time that night. No service, no GPS, just that endless desert highway and the glow of my dashboard clock, 1:13 a.m. The only sound was the wind whistling through a tiny crack in the windowsill and the low hum of tires against asphalt. The world outside was an ocean of black, with the occasional roadside reflector flicking by like a heartbeat. I was coming back from Los Angeles, headed home to Flagstaff after a weekend of what I thought would be a new beginning. Meeting a girl from online, someone who felt real, different. Turns out she wasn't. And now, with my phone dead and my mind replaying every awkward moment, the desert felt like punishment. That stretch of I-40 is brutal. No towns, no gas, just sand, wind, and the weight of your own thoughts. Around mile marker 187, the air changed. You feel it before you notice it. The wind goes still. The car feels heavy like the tires are dragging through mud. I remember leaning forward, gripping the steering wheel tighter, feeling something in the air. That faint electric tension, like before lightning strikes. Then I saw her. At first I thought it was a trick of my eyes, a shape standing by the side of the road right past the reflector pole. A woman. White dress, long hair whipping in the breeze. She wasn't hitchhiking, wasn't moving. Just standing. Facing the road, head tilted slightly like she was listening. I slowed down, heart thudding. Out there, in that kind of darkness, your mind plays games. But when my headlights swept over her, I saw her face, pale, drained of all color, eyes hollow like burnt-out bulbs. Her dress looked wet, though there hadn't been rain for weeks. She turned her head as I passed, just enough for me to see her mouth move. I couldn't hear her, but I could read her lips. Stop. My foot hit the gas instead. The car roared, tires squealing on the shoulder as I pulled back onto the asphalt. My rearview mirror caught her one last time, still there, standing perfectly still but now facing me. I swear I saw her smile. For the next 10 miles, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was in the car with me. You ever feel watched? From the back seat? Like your reflection in the rear view isn't alone? I kept glancing up, expecting to see her eyes staring back at me. The temperature inside the car dropped, breath misting in the air. I turned off the AC. It wasn't on. Then the radio came alive. It was just static at first, white noise bleeding through a dead signal. Then underneath it, a voice. Faint, whispering my name. Not once, over and over. Eli. My name. I slammed the power button, but the static didn't stop. The screen flickered, distorted, showing fragments of numbers. 1, 8, 7, the mile marker. I pulled over, couldn't help it. The engine idled rough, lights dimming as if the battery were draining fast. I opened the door and stepped out, the desert wind cutting through me like a blade. The night was too quiet. No insects, no cars, no sound at all. Then I heard her again. Behind me. Eli. She was standing in the middle of the road now, dress rippling though there was no wind. Her face clearer this time. Not angry, not ghostly, just pleading. Her voice trembled. Please. Help me. I should have run. But something about the way she said it, it wasn't just a call for help. It was like she knew me. Like she'd been waiting. I took one step toward her, and the desert shifted. The air bent, heat mirage turning to motion. And suddenly I wasn't standing on asphalt anymore. I was standing ankle deep in black water. My headlights reflected off the surface, revealing a car half submerged, twisted metal glinting beneath the ripples. Inside, a woman's hand pressed weakly against the glass. Her hand, The same white dress. The same face. She was drowning. I screamed, lunged forward, but my feet sank deeper. Cold wrapped around me, and before I could blink, the road was gone. The water rose to my chest, choking, pulling. I reached out, and my fingers met glass. A reflection stared back, my own face distorted. The woman's voice whispered through the water. "You didn't stop. You never stop." And then, headlights. Blinding, a horn, screech of tires. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the asphalt. Kneeling. My car idling beside me, driver's door wide open. A trucker was stopped a few yards away, shouting, asking if I was okay. I must have looked insane, drenched, trembling, unable to speak. He drove me to the next rest stop, said he'd seen me pulled over back there, standing in the middle of the road like I was waiting to get hit. "You're lucky," he said. "That's a bad spot. Folks say a woman died there years ago. Car went off the road into a wash after a storm. Nobody found her for a week. Mile marker 187. I didn't tell him what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. But sometimes when I drive that stretch, and I have to for work, my radio still flickers alive near that mile. The static hums, and if I listen close, beneath the noise, I can hear her whisper, "Stop." This is Dark Whispers. And if you ever find yourself driving that lonely stretch of California highway at night, remember mile marker 187. If you see her, don't stop, because she's not asking for help anymore. She's asking for company. They called it the Silver Moon Lodge, though the neon moon outside hadn't glowed since 1987. I found it after a long drive north from Ridgecrest, looking for a place to crash before heading to Lake Tahoe. My car was low on gas, and the only light for miles was that old sign buzzing faintly, half the letters burned out. The lobby smelled like dust and cold coffee. Behind the counter sat an old woman in a wool sweater despite the summer heat. She watched me walk in like I'd already done something wrong. "Single room?" she asked, voice dry as sandpaper. "Yeah, just one night." She slid a key across the counter, an actual metal key on a cracked leather tag, room 6. "No refunds," she said, "and don't open the connecting door." I laughed nervously. "What connecting door?" Her eyes didn't blink. "You'll see." The hallway carpets were threadbare, patterned with old moons and stars faded to ghosts. My boots made no sound. Every door was shut except mine and one at the far end that hung slightly ajar. A strip of darkness leaking through inside. Room 6 was straight out of 1975. Avocado green drapes, cigarette burns on the nightstand, a humming window AC that rattled every few seconds. The connecting door she'd mentioned stood on the right wall, painted the same color as everything else, but with a single bolt lock shining new against the chipped wood. I dropped my bag on the bed, sat, and the mattress exhaled a smell like mildew and something sweeter underneath, like perfume left too long in the sun. I tried to charge my phone, but the outlet was dead. When I flipped open my laptop, the Wi-Fi name that popped up made my stomach dip. Silver Moon 6 guest. The connection's strength pulsed. Strong. Then gone, then strong again, like it was breathing. Around 1 a.m., the sound started. Not from the hallway, from the other side of that connecting door. A soft dragging like cloth on carpet. Then a knock. Slow, deliberate, 3 times. I froze. Laptop light flickering across the walls. The knock came again, followed by a whisper that might have been my name. "Eli." My blood went cold. I hadn't told anyone where I was. I stepped closer, ear to the wood. Silence. Then, a faint laugh. Female, too close. Like her lips were right against the keyhole. "Did you come back for me?" The bolt lock shivered as if something had brushed against it from the other side. I stumbled back, grabbed my car keys, ready to leave. Then the air changed. The AC died mid-rattle. Every light in the room dimmed, not off, just weaker, like the walls were absorbing them. A smell rolled through the room. Wet earth and old metal. Then the television turned itself on. Static filled the screen, but through the snow I could see shapes moving. A woman sitting on the bed, same room, same furniture, but everything coated in a film of black water. Her head turned slowly toward the camera. "Room 6, she whispered. "You promised." The screen went black. I grabbed my bag and bolted. When I yanked the door open, the hallway was gone. In its place stretched a corridor of mirrors, floor to ceiling, every reflection slightly delayed. I could see myself, but behind me in each reflection, the connecting door stood wide open and a figure stepped out. White dress. Long hair dripping, I ran. My reflection didn't. When I reached the lobby, the old woman was gone. The desk phone rang once, sharp and loud. I picked it up without thinking. "Don't open the connecting door." Her voice hissed through the line. "You already did." Then a click, and the sound of running water filled the receiver. Outside, dawn was breaking gray over the desert hills. My car was exactly where I'd left it, except the back seat was soaked. Water pooled on the floor mats, shimmering with something like oil. I drove until the gas light came on. Didn't stop until I hit a crowded diner in Bishop. The waitress asked if I was okay, said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told her about the Silver Moon Lodge, room 6. She frowned. "Honey, that place burned down years ago." Whole wing collapsed after a pipe burst and flooded the rooms. A woman drowned in there before they found her. "You sure you were at the right place?" I pulled the key from my pocket to prove it. But it wasn't metal anymore, just a strip of swollen, waterlogged leather with the number 6 barely visible beneath a smear of black soot. This is Dark Whispers. And if you ever find yourself on Highway 395 after dark, tired and looking for a cheap room, keep driving, because some motel doors don't open to another room. They open back to the night you were never supposed to survive. I'd been camping along the Northern California coast for 3 nights when the fog rolled in thick enough to taste. It clung to my skin, my clothes, even the inside of the tent. Around midnight, the ocean went silent. No crash, no hiss, just the deep pulse of water moving somewhere far below like a giant heartbeat. I stepped out with my flashlight, and the beam vanished 3 feet in front of me. That's when I saw the footprints, small, bare, leading from the edge of my camp toward the bluff. Wet sand prints, fresh, glistening in the fog. There was no one else out there. The park ranger had told me the last visitor left before sunset. I followed them anyway. The prints stopped at the cliff's edge. I leaned forward and my stomach dropped. Below was a shelf of black rock and a small cove where the tide sloshed like breathing. And in the water, waist deep, a woman stood facing the horizon. Her hair floated around her like seaweed. White dress soaked, arms outstretched as if she were waiting for something. I called out. She didn't turn. The fog thickened, wrapping the world in cotton. My flashlight flickered and died. When the beam blinked back, she was gone. I heard dripping behind me. Turned. The footprints led back the way I came. But they weren't mine anymore. Smaller, lighter, still wet. I ran for the tent. Inside, everything was damp. My sleeping bag, my clothes, even the pictures on my phone, all fogged over. Every photo I'd taken that week was gone except one new file. IMG 1313 JPCO. I opened it. It showed me standing at the edge of the cliff, taken from the water below. In the corner, half hidden by mist, a pale hand rested on my shoulder. I packed up and left before sunrise. Back home in Sacramento, I dumped the photos onto my computer. That image wasn't there anymore. But my desktop background had changed to a gray, rippling pattern that looked almost like water. When I touched the trackpad, my fingers came away wet. I was hiking alone in Joshua Tree when I found it, half buried in the sand near an abandoned homestead cabin, a 1970s Polaroid SX70 with a cracked lens and a strip of old film still loaded inside. The desert was silent except for the dry wind rubbing against the cholla. I almost left it there, but something about it felt alive, humming faintly when I picked it up. That night, in the cheap motel back in 29 Palms, I cleaned it off and pressed the red shutter just to see if it worked. The motor whirred, a photograph slid out, and the chemical smell filled the room. When the image cleared, it showed me, standing beside the same cabin where I'd found the camera. Only I wasn't smiling, and something dark stood in the doorway behind me. I told myself it had to be a shadow, a trick of exposure. But curiosity is a sickness. I drove back to the site the next morning to prove it. The cabin looked smaller in daylight, the door half rotted. I raised the camera, framed the doorway, and took another shot. As the photo developed, a cold wind pushed through the Joshua trees. This time the picture showed the doorway empty, but a new figure appeared in the reflection of the broken window. Closer. I left the camera on the ground and drove off. That evening, when I returned to my motel, the Polaroid was sitting on the bedspread. A fresh print rested on top, me asleep in that very room taken from inches away. I didn't sleep after that. I left at dawn, speeding north on Highway 62 until the desert blurred. In my rearview mirror, the road shimmered, and for a second I saw the cabin again, standing where it shouldn't be. When I stopped for gas in Yucca Valley, the attendant asked if I'd been out near the old homesteads. "They always come back," he muttered. "Those pictures, they don't fade right." I threw the camera in the station's trash bin and kept driving. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at my apartment in Sacramento. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. The picture showed my front door taken at night. Through the peephole glowed the faint reflection of a figure holding a camera. I'd been working as a wildlife researcher for the state, tracking owl populations in the deep redwoods north of Fort Bragg. The days were quiet, mist hanging in the treetops, the smell of moss and rain. Nights were different. The forest went too still, as if the wind itself held its breath. On my third night out, I set up an audio recorder near an old logging road the maps no longer showed. Around midnight, the machine picked up something. 5 seconds of low humming, not mechanical, more like a human voice echoing through metal. When I played it back in the tent, the temperature dropped. Every insect went silent at once. I stepped outside, flashlight shaking in my hand. The forest was thick with fog, beams of light bending through the trunks like underwater currents. Then I saw it, someone standing halfway down the trail. A woman, I thought at first. Long dark hair, skin pale against the trees. She didn't move. "Hello?" I called. "You lost?" She tilted her head slightly, like she didn't understand the words. Then she stepped back and disappeared behind a redwood. I followed, stupidly calling out again. But when I reached the spot, there was only a hollow where the base of the tree had rotted away. Inside, the air smelled like wet metal. My flashlight flickered. For half a second, I saw eyes inside the hollow, too far apart, shining gray. Then the beam died. When it came back, the hollow was empty. I ran all the way back to the tent. By dawn, I packed up, but before I left, I checked the recorder again. It had kept running all night. Most of it was static and wind until the last 2 minutes. Then came my own voice, whispering softly, "Don't look in the hollow. She's still inside." I didn't remember saying that 2 weeks later back in Sacramento, the state office called. They wanted to know why I'd turned in blank audio files. Every single one, erased clean. That night, as I tried to sleep, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single voicemail, nothing but breathing and a faint whisper. "You found me." When I looked out my window, the reflection in the glass showed a redwood trunk stretching behind me, though I lived in the middle of the city. When I first moved to LA, I rented a studio on Vermont Avenue near Koreatown, a cheap 1940s walk-up wedged between a liquor store and a tattoo shop. The kind of place that always smells faintly of old paint and heat. The manager, Mr. Rojas, handed me the keys and said, "Don't worry about the noise. Building's just settling." The noise started that same night. It was faint at first and a slow tapping above the ceiling, too steady for rats, too deliberate for pipes. Around 3 a.m. it stopped, followed by a single knock at my front door. When I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty, but the air smelled like burned plastic. Over the next week, I learned the rhythm of the place. Street sirens, distant laughter, then that same tap, tap, tap above me just before dawn. One morning, half asleep, I banged on the ceiling with a broom and yelled, "Keep it down!" Something tapped back. I went downstairs to ask the manager about whoever lived above me. He frowned. "No one. Roof access only. Old storage." He handed me the keys to prove it and told me not to stay up there long. The floor wasn't safe. Curiosity wins over common sense every time. The door to the roof stairwell groaned open like a throat clearing. Dust swirled in the stale light from a single bulb. Halfway up, I smelled smoke, sweet, chemical, like melted film. At the top was a narrow maintenance room lined with cracked mirrors and rolls of insulation. In one corner sat a metal chair, its seat scorched black. Someone had scrawled on the wall behind it, "I see you now." That night, the tapping turned into scraping, and then whispers. I started recording the sounds on my phone. When I played them back, there was always a second voice underneath mine, a woman's, breathy, almost curious. "Why did you come back?" she'd ask. By the third week, the lights began flickering whenever I passed the hallway mirror near the elevator. My reflection would lag half a heartbeat behind, mouth still moving after mine stopped. One evening, coming home from work, I found my door unlocked. Inside, everything looked untouched except the mirror above the sink. Written across it in the same soot-colored scrawl were the words, "Stay downstairs." I called Rojas. He came up, saw the writing, turned pale. "She's back," he whispered, and left without another word. That night I dreamed of the roof. The chair, the smell of smoke, a woman in a white robe, hair covering her face, sitting there humming a tune that twisted into the tapping sound. When I woke, the ceiling above my bed was warm to the touch, like something smoldered behind it. The fire alarm went off at 4 a.m. I ran into the hall. No smoke, no flames, just alarms blaring. The other tenants stared at me, confused. I was the only one who heard the tapping through the sirens. After the fire department cleared us, I went back to grab my things. The mirror by the elevator was cracked clean down the middle, and behind the glass, for a split second, I saw her face. Burned, eyes like melted glass. I moved out that morning. 2 months later, I read an old article online. Tenant dies in electrical fire at Vermont Avenue Apartments, 1979. Female, Tugism, cause, faulty wiring in roof maintenance room. Her name was Elisa Vargas. She'd been trapped behind a metal chair while trying to fix a short circuit. Sometimes, when I scroll through my photos from that year, one picture refuses to delete, a blurred shot of my bathroom mirror. In the reflection stands a woman half turned toward me, her face catching the light like molten glass. I'd taken the teaching job in Bishop because I wanted quiet. After 20 years in Los Angeles, the hum of sirens and freeways had rewired my nerves. The Eastern Sierra looked like a cure. Clean air, cold nights, space enough for my thoughts. I rented a small A-frame outside of June Lake. The realtor warned me about the drive. Narrow road, no guardrails, and in winter the snow buried the signs. I didn't care. The mountains looked honest, too big to lie. For the first month it was peace. Every morning I'd drink coffee on the porch and watch fog crawl up from the valley. At night the wind came down the ridge like surf, steady and ancient. Then the thaw came. That's when the lake appeared. It wasn't June Lake. I could see that shining below the highway every day. This one sat higher, in a bowl of black pines about a mile behind my house. The locals said there was no lake up there, just meltwater pools. But one evening, walking past the timberline, I saw it perfectly still, dark as oil. No ripples, no sound. And something about its surface looked wrong, like it was a mirror laid flat instead of water. I tossed a stone. It didn't splash. It just vanished, the surface swallowing it with a dull pop. I went back home uneasy, told myself it was ice, but that night my dreams smelled of wet soil. The next morning, footprints led from the back steps toward the woods, bare feet small, each print filled with a thin skin of water. I followed them halfway up the trail before they disappeared on dry ground. The power went out that evening. I lit candles, wrapped myself in a blanket, and tried to read. Around midnight, a soft knocking started at the porch door, slow, irregular. I thought it was wind until the knob turned once. I grabbed the flashlight and swung the door open. No one. But across the clearing, the trees were dripping as if a rainstorm hung only above them. A smell of algae drifted through the cold. On the porch boards, a single wet footprint gleamed in the beam. I called the sheriff the next morning. He came up in a mud-splattered SUV, looked around, shrugged. "Probably a lost hiker," he said. "They wander down from the ridge sometimes. You'd be surprised how many." When I mentioned the lake, his expression changed. "There's no lake above June. That basin drains east. Must have seen a melt pond." I showed him the photo I'd taken on my phone. He frowned. The screen showed only trees, no water, just gray trunks fading into fog. He left after that, telling me to get a dog. That night I dreamed of the water again. This time I was beneath it, looking up at a pale surface that pulsed with light. Figures floated above, bodies drifting slowly, hair waving like grass. One of them turned. Her eyes were open. When I woke, my mouth tasted of iron. The footprints were back, more of them now, circling the porch leading toward the trail. and at the far edge something new, drag marks as if someone had been pulled downhill. I followed them at dusk. The path twisted through granite outcrops until the trees opened on the lake again, bigger now, stretching farther between the pines. The air hummed like electricity. On the near bank lay a shape, small, gray. I thought it was a log until it moved. It was a child, maybe 8 years old, hair matted with pine needles. Her eyes were open but empty, skin waxy and damp. She whispered something I couldn't hear. When I knelt closer, her lips cracked into a smile. "Help me," she breathed, and water spilled from her mouth. Then she slid backward without moving her legs, straight into the lake. The surface swallowed her soundlessly. I ran. I left the cabin the next morning, drove straight down 395 to Bishop. The sheriff wouldn't believe me. Neither would the ranger station. I packed my things that night, ready to leave for good. But when I opened the front door, the road was gone. In its place stretched black water, stretching right up to the porch steps, reflecting the moon. I heard splashing behind me, tiny feet on the floorboards. Then the voice close to my ear. "You came back." Cold hands touched my wrists and pulled. They found my truck 2 weeks later at the edge of June Lake, doors open, keys still in the ignition. The cabin stood empty, porch warped as if soaked from beneath. Locals say that when the thaw comes, a new pool appears in the high pines, just for a few nights, and you can see lights moving under the surface. Some say it's runoff, others say it's the lake below June opening for another visitor. I took the lighthouse job because I wanted to disappear. That's not something you tell a supervisor, of course. When the Maritime Restoration Board posted a listing for seasonal maintenance assistant Point Reyes Beacon, I told them I was a freelance writer looking for quiet. They didn't ask why all my references had disconnected numbers. The truth was simpler. I needed somewhere no one could find me. The lighthouse stood alone at the end of a cracked asphalt road, perched above a 100-foot drop into the Pacific. The nearest town, Inverness, was 10 miles inland, and most locals avoided the cliffs after dark. The fog rolled in thick and fast, swallowing the road, the rocks, sometimes even the sky. When I arrived that October, the place looked peaceful. The keeper's cottage had been restored, a small white house with green trim and a view that made you forget what year it was. The ocean stretched forever, horizon smudged into gray. The caretaker who met me, an old man named Lawson, looked carved from driftwood. "She's an honest post," he said, handing me the keys. "Lonely but honest. The light runs on a timer now, but check her at night anyway. The sea plays tricks." He paused, squinting toward the fog. "If you hear bells after midnight, don't look for them. That's what brings the fog in close." I laughed, but he didn't. He patted my shoulder and drove off, leaving me with the gulls and the wind. For the first week, it was paradise. Morning smelled of salt and coffee. I'd climb the tower stairs and watch the beam sweep the horizon. Evenings, I'd walk the cliffs and listen to waves hit the rocks below. There was no cell signal, no traffic, no past. Then came the bells. It started on the 7th night, a faint chiming beneath the surf. Not quite metal, more like something hollow struck underwater. I leaned over the railing, but the fog had rolled in thick and sound bends strange in mist. By midnight, the chiming grew louder, steady. 3 slow tolls. Pause, too quick, over and over. I went outside with a flashlight scanning the water. Nothing but haze and the slap of waves. But the sound felt close, almost in the air. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a light far out on the water. Not a buoy's blink, but a flicker, like a lantern swinging. Then it vanished. I told myself it was an echo from some ship's bell. I almost believed it. 2 nights later, I woke to footsteps in the tower. Slow, deliberate climbing the iron stairs. The cottage door was locked from the inside, but the sound came from the next room, up through the floorboards, metallic and wet. I ran outside. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the tower until I touched its base. The light above spun calmly, cutting faint paths through mist. But the steps continued inside. Clang, clang, pause. Each footfall echoed through the steel. I shouted, thinking maybe the Coast Guard had come unannounced, but no answer came. Then the bells started again, louder, 3 long, 2 short, and beneath it, just for a moment, a woman's voice, distant and broken by wind, whispering between the tolls. When I opened the tower door, the steps stopped. The staircase was empty, slick with condensation. But near the bottom landing, a trail of wet footprints led upward. Bare feet, narrow, small. They vanished halfway up. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. By morning, the fog had lifted. The ocean looked innocent again. I told myself exhaustion was playing tricks. Isolation does that. But the next day, I found the photograph. It had slipped between two ledgers in the supply cabinet, an old black and white, edges curling. 4 lighthouse keepers stood on the same balcony I'd been on last night, grinning stiffly at the camera. Written on the back, in neat cursive, Point Reyes Station, 1939, the day after the wreck of the Marisol. One of the men in the picture was Lawson, younger but unmistakable. Standing beside him, half turned toward the sea, was a woman in a long oilskin coat. Her face was pale, her hair dark and wet as kelp. For a second, it looked like her eyes were opened too wide, black to the edges. Then it was just shadow. I set the photo on the desk. That's when I heard the faint dripping, not rain, inside the house. A steady drip, drip, drip from the corner near the door. When I turned, a thin line of water seeped from beneath the threshold, pooling slowly on the floor. The air smelled of salt and iron. I opened the door. Fog pressed against the porch like a living thing, curling inward. And floating in that fog, just beyond the steps, was a figure. It stood motionless, head bowed, hair hanging wet across its face. The bells tolled once, twice, and the figure raised its head. The eyes were hollow, the mouth filled with water that spilled as it smiled. "Keeper," it whispered, "light the way." Then the fog swallowed it whole. I didn't go outside again until daylight. The porch was dry, no footprints, no water, nothing. The air smelled sharp and clean. For a few hours, I convinced myself it had all been a dream. But when I stepped into the tower that afternoon, the air felt heavy, charged. The metal stairs slick with condensation, though the sun was out. And the photograph I'd left on the desk was gone. In its place sat a rusted ship's bell crusted with barnacles. There was no way it had been there before. I hadn't even seen a bell in the storage logs. But there it sat, and engraved along the rim, faint under rust, were the words, Marisol, the same name from the photo. I touched it. The metal was cold, sea cold, like something dragged from deep water. My fingertip came away wet, and for an instant I heard a faint chime right beside my ear. I left it there and locked the tower. That night, the fog returned. It rolled in before sundown, thicker than ever, swallowing the cliffs. I lit the lanterns and stayed inside, listening to radio static. Around midnight, the bells started again, louder, closer, like under the floorboards. Then the door handle began to turn. Slow, deliberate. Through the window, nothing but white fog pressing against the glass. The handle scraped back and forth. "Don't open it," I whispered. Then the voice from outside. "Keeper, you have to light the way." Underneath it, another sound dragging along the porch. I backed toward the bedroom, but the lights flickered and went out. Only the lighthouse beam swept past the windows every few seconds. In those slices of light, I saw movement, a shape pressed against the glass, the outline of a face, pale and warped, water dripping down the pane. Then 2 hands, fingers splayed, nails blackened. Then nothing, a splash below the cliff. I ran to the window. The fog had thinned just enough to see the edge of the rocks. And far below, a shimmer of light beneath the surface, moving, glowing, like lanterns drifting underwater. The bells tolled again, 3 long, 2 short. And from the depths, figures began to rise, dozens of them, pale and slow, hair waving in the current. Faces turned upward, mouths open, eyes black. They drifted just below the surface, all looking toward the cliffs. Then I saw her, the woman from the photograph, from the porch, standing atop the surf like the water held her. She lifted one arm toward the lighthouse and screamed, but the sound came out as the toll of a bell. Every window in the house shattered. When I woke, it was morning. The floor was soaked. My watch was stopped at 3:07 a.m. The radio was dead, the bulbs blown, and the tower door stood wide open. The bell was gone. I packed my things, drove straight to Inverness and demanded to see Lawson. The clerk at the general store just stared. "Lawson?" she said. "Ed Lawson's been gone 10 years. Died out there during a storm. You must have met his nephew or something." I showed her the photograph. She looked, frowned, and handed it back. "That's Ed there," she said, pointing. "And that's the woman, his wife, Marisol. She went down with the ship named after her." "What ship?" I asked. She looked at me like I'd asked if the ocean was wet. "The Marisol. Wrecked in '39 right off the point. They say he kept hearing her bells after the storm. Drove him near crazy. They found him one night walking straight into the fog carrying a lantern. Never came back. I never went back to the lighthouse. I drove south the same day through San Francisco, through endless traffic until the air stopped smelling of salt. But some nights, when the world is quiet and the sea wind sneaks through the window, I still hear it, 3 slow tolls, 2 quick. And sometimes, if I listen long enough, I can hear the whisper too, "Keeper, light the way." Man, I'd been driving for 9 hours straight. Just me, a busted-up Corolla, and the kind of heat that makes your bones feel soft. I was headed from Bakersfield to the coast, but the GPS kept rerouting me, spinning that little blue circle like it was lost too. When the gas light blinked on, I saw it. A faded roadside sign half buried in sand, Sunset Motel, 1 mile. I don't know why, but I felt relieved just seeing those words. Civilization, air conditioning, maybe a soda machine that still worked. The motel sat alone under a sky-bruised purple with heat. Its neon sign buzzed weakly and half the letters were dead. Set Motel. The parking lot was cracked and empty except for an old red pickup that looked abandoned. Inside the office, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. A little bell sat on the counter, and when I rang it, the sound echoed way too long. Then a woman appeared, middle-aged, short hair, polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Room?" she asked. I nodded. "Just for the night?" She handed me a key. Not a card, but a real metal key on a plastic tag that said Room 7. Her hand brushed mine, and it was cold. Like really cold, like out of the freezer cold. "The ice machine's broken," she said softly. "And don't go walking around after midnight. The road plays tricks." I laughed a little. Awkward. "Okay, yeah, sure." She didn't laugh back. Room 7 looked clean enough. 2 twin beds, a little TV bolted to the dresser. The kind of scratchy motel comforter that feels like plastic. The air conditioner rattled but worked. I showered, sat on the bed, scrolled my phone. No signal, of course, then I heard it. Faint at first. Someone walking in the room above me, except the motel was 1 story. The steps went slow, back and forth, back and forth. Then a sound like dragging, like someone pulling something heavy across the floor. I told myself it was pipes or old wiring, turned the TV up. Didn't help. Around midnight, I decided I needed a smoke. When I stepped outside, the desert was dead quiet. No crickets, no cars, nothing. Just heat radiating off the asphalt. Then I noticed all the doors were open, every single room down the row, all black inside. I backed toward mine, but then I saw her, a woman standing under the flickering sign. Same figure as the clerk, same hair, same build. Only her head hung low, and her feet were bare. Something dark stained the sand around them. She looked up slowly. Her eyes were gone, not empty, just water, like 2 puddles reflecting neon. "You shouldn't have stopped," she whispered. And behind her, for just a second, I saw headlights. A dozen pairs of them, all facing the motel, all running but with no one inside. Then they flickered out. I bolted back inside, locked the door, shoved the dresser against it. The air conditioner was blowing hot air now. I sat on the bed, shaking, staring at the floor. That's when the TV turned itself on. Static. Then, slowly, an image faded in. A man sitting on the edge of my bed. Same room, same comforter, staring straight at the camera. He opened his mouth. "You'll never leave," he said. The TV snapped back to static. I grabbed my bag, threw open the door, dawn light. The lot was empty. No pickup, no office light, no woman. Just dust and the sound of wind. I drove until the tank hit empty again, rolled into a gas station maybe 40 miles away. The cashier looked up and said, "Man, you look like you've seen a ghost." I laughed. Shaky. Stopped at the Sunset Motel down the highway. "Weird place," he froze. "Sunset Motel?" "Yeah," he just shook his head. "Buddy, that place burned down back in '92. Nobody's run it since." "You sure you didn't take a wrong turn?" I didn't answer. Just filled my tank and drove, eyes glued to the road. In the rearview mirror, for just a second, I saw the neon flicker again, red and dying, set moat L and faint under the engine's hum. I swear I heard her voice, "You'll never leave." 10:34 p.m., 11/4/2025. Rhubarb. It started with a drive up to Big Bear. I wasn't looking for ghosts or stories or anything strange. I just wanted quiet. I'd been working too long in LA, choking on smog and sirens. So I rented a little cabin up by Baldwin Lake. Cheap, older listing, rustic charm, the ad said. It looked decent enough in the photos. The real thing was different. The road leading there wound through pine and rock, the trees leaning close, branches clawing at the car like they wanted in. The air smelled of sap and dust. By the time I reached the cabin, the sun was already folding behind the peaks. It was smaller than I'd expected. One bedroom, a wood stove, no Wi-Fi. The porch creaked under my boots. There was a smell in the air. Not rot, but something sour like wet bark. I almost left right then. But something about the silence, then heavy and absolute, and felt like a dare. So I stayed. Inside, the cabin looked wrong, too clean. Every surface scrubbed until it gleamed. But the windows were sealed with tape, like someone was afraid of the outside. A single wooden chair sat by the back door facing the forest. There was a note pinned above the sink. "If you hear them, don't answer." They remember voices, no signature, no explanation. That first night I built a fire, poured whiskey, and tried to read. Around midnight I heard it. A knocking. Not at the door. On the walls, slow, rhythmic, like something tapping from outside. I stepped out onto the porch, flashlight in hand. The forest was black. No sound but wind through the pines. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks. Only this time it came from behind me. Inside the cabin, I spun around, nothing. The fire still glowed. The chair by the back door empty, but on the wall near the window a handprint. Small, like a child's, but long-fingered, pressed into the condensation. The next day I drove into town. Big Bear's the kind of place that looks friendly until you start asking questions. When I mentioned Baldwin Lake and the cabin, the woman at the diner stiffened. "You're staying up there?" "Yeah, why?" She hesitated, then said, "Don't go walking at night. That's where they found the Carvers." "Found who?" She looked past me like she'd said too much. "Never mind. Coffee's on the house." That evening, clouds rolled in fast. By sunset, the forest was choked in mist. I sat on the porch again, watching the fog crawl between the trees. Then I saw her, a girl, maybe 10, standing at the tree line. Barefoot, hair pale as bone. She wasn't moving, just staring at me. "Hey," I called out, standing. "You okay?" She tilted her head. The fog thickened, swallowing her. When it thinned again, she was gone. Inside, the fire had gone out. The cabin was freezing. That's when I noticed the note above the sink. It had changed. Same handwriting. New words. "Don't look at them. They'll wear your face next." That night I dreamed I was in the woods, running. The trees bent inward, their trunks splitting open like mouths. Whispers followed me, soft and wet, repeating my name over and over until it didn't sound like mine anymore. When I woke, something was wrong. The door was open. Outside, the ground was covered in small footprints, dozens of them, leading from the forest straight to the porch, but none leading back. I slammed the door, nailed it shut, tried to convince myself I'd been sleepwalking. Then I heard the knocking again. 3 slow taps, and after a pause, the same 3, answered from another wall. Then another. Soon it was coming from every side, circling the cabin. The windows rattled. A voice outside whispered, "Please, let me in." A child's voice. I covered my ears. No, then softer, and my own voice echoed back, "Please, let me in." I lost track of time after that, days blurred. The knocking never stopped completely. Sometimes it came from under the floor, sometimes from the ceiling. The third night I found carvings on the inside of the door, words etched deep into the wood. "We are still here." That was when I packed up. I was halfway to my car when I heard laughter behind me. Light, musical, like kids at play. I looked back. Shapes between the trees. Children, dozens of them, pale and shifting, like smoke trying to remember being solid. Their eyes were dark holes, and when they smiled, their teeth looked carved from bark. At their center stood the girl from before. She raised her hand. My headlights flickered, then all at once they screamed. Not high or shrill, but deep. a sound that cracked through me like pressure underwater. I dropped to my knees, ears ringing. When I looked up, they were gone. The trees stood still again. I drove all night, didn't stop until I hit Riverside. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I called the rental number. Disconnected. I tried to find the address online. Nothing. No listing. No property records. Finally, I went back to the diner in Big Bear. Same woman. Same tired eyes. I asked her straight out, "What happened to the Carvers?" She didn't look surprised. Family bought that cabin in '78. Husband, wife, little girl. Storm came through that winter. Search party found the cabin empty. Doors locked from the inside. No footprints, no bodies. She wiped her hands on her apron. They say the woods kept them. The trees out there remember faces. If they like yours, they wear it a while. She met my eyes. You left in time. That night, back home in LA, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something. Carved faintly into the bathroom. Mirror. Almost invisible until the steam from the shower hit. It letters. Words. You shouldn't have. Looked. I wiped the glass clean. Nothing there. But when I turned off the light for just a second, I saw a reflection standing behind me. A little girl. Pale hair, smiling. Tarrytown, 5 p.m. Stores 425 Rhubarb. I moved to Los Angeles last summer. The kind of move you make when you're trying to start over. Divorce, job loss, you name it, I had the baggage. I needed a place cheap, quiet, and away from people. I found a listing in East Hollywood. 1-bedroom, vintage building. Utilities included. The rent was half what it should have been when I showed up. The manager, an older man with tired eyes, looked like he didn't expect anyone to actually take it. He just said, "Unit 3B, don't worry if you hear the pipes." The building. Settles at night. The place smelled old. Not dirty, just old, like wet concrete in time. Cracked tiles in the kitchen. Yellow wallpaper curling at the seams. But it was quiet, and that was enough. That first night, I fell asleep to the sound of something faint in the walls. A low hum, steady and distant, like machinery far below. It wasn't unpleasant, just strange. By morning, I'd forgotten it. Day 3, the humming got louder. It wasn't in the walls anymore. It came from under the floor, vibrating the bed frame. I knocked on the floorboards, half joking. "Hey, quit it down there." That's when it stopped. Instant silence. I exhaled, relieved, until something knocked back. 3 times. Slow, measured. I froze. Then laughed nervously. Old buildings, I told myself. Pipes. But that night the humming returned. Louder. The next week was a blur. Every night around 1:15 a.m., the hum started again. Always the same pitch, same rhythm. I tried recording it once, but on playback all I got was silence. No hum, no ambient noise. Nothing. Then came the smell. It started faint, metallic like pennies in water. Then stronger, filling the apartment, heavy and wet. I went to the kitchen and saw it. A dark stain spreading out from beneath the fridge. When I pulled it away from the wall, there was a hole in the floor, about the size of a dinner plate, edges perfectly round. The humming came from there. I bent down. The air blowing out was cold like air conditioning. Deeper, beneath the hum, I could almost hear something else. A rhythm, like breathing. The next morning, I went to the manager. Told him about the noise, the hole, the smell. He didn't look surprised. Just sighed. 3B always complains about that. What do you mean, always? He hesitated, then said, "You're the 5th tenant in that unit this year." I stared at him. What happened to the others? He rubbed his forehead. They left, some without notice. One didn't. I waited, heart pounding. He just said, "Don't mess with the hole." That's all. That night I pushed my dresser over it. I wasn't scared, that's what I told myself. But the thought of that breath under the floor made my skin crawl. At 1:15, the humming came back. Only this time it didn't stay below. It moved. The sound rose up through the dresser, through the walls, circling the apartment like it was alive. Dishes rattled. The light flickered. I heard whispering, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. My name over and over. I ran into the hallway. The air was thick with that same metallic smell. The lights buzzed and every door on my floor was open. No one inside. Just empty apartments, all identical, each with the same circular hole in the floor. I left that night, checked into a motel near Glendale. The next morning, I called the city. I wanted to report something. Gas leak, mold, anything. The operator paused after I gave the address. "Sir," she said slowly, "there's no record of any residential building there. That address belongs to a condemned property, closed since 1999. I laughed, thinking she was mistaken. I'd lived there. I still had the key. So I drove back. But when I reached the street, the building was gone. Not demolished, just gone. Empty lot, chain link fence, nothing but weeds and cracked asphalt. That night at the motel, I woke at 1:15. Something was humming through the wall. I pressed my ear to it. The sound was the same. Low, rhythmic, alive. And underneath it, a whisper, 3B. I checked out before dawn. A month later, I got a call from a woman who said she'd found my number on a scrap of paper inside a wall cavity during renovations on an old apartment complex in East Hollywood. "You lived here, didn't you?" she asked. "Yeah," I said slowly. She paused. "There's something under the floors. It's hollow down there, like tunnels. They hum sometimes." My throat went dry. "Get out of there." "I can't," she whispered. "It's everywhere." Then the line went dead. It was late August when my car died on Red Hollow Road. No warning, just a sudden jolt, a clicking sound, and silence. No service, no cars, nothing but the sound of the desert breathing. The sun had just dropped, leaving that bruised sky you only get in the California dustlands. I was miles from anywhere. Then I saw it, a glow up ahead. At first I thought it was a house, maybe a diner still open. But as I got closer, I realized it was a church. Old, wooden, paint stripped by years of wind. The sign out front barely readable, the First Light Tabernacle of Redemption. The windows glowed soft orange, like there were candles inside. I hesitated, hand on my car door, that familiar cold creeping through my gut. But then I heard it, a voice carried on the wind, faint and rhythmic, singing, so I went in. The front doors groaned open. Inside it was warm, too warm. Dozens of candles lined the aisles, dripping wax onto cracked pews. The air smelled of incense and metal. At the front stood a man in a dark suit facing away from me, head bowed. He was humming, low and tuneless. "Sorry to bother you," I said. "My car broke down out there." He didn't turn right away. When he did, his face looked stretched thin by the candlelight. Pale skin, hollow cheeks, eyes like polished glass. "You're welcome here," he said softly. "All are when they lose their way." His voice was calm, too calm, like he'd been expecting me. He gestured toward a pew. "Rest, the night is long." I sat, uneasy. "You got a phone?" "I just need to call for a tow," he smiled. "No phone, but you'll be taken care of." Behind him I noticed something. The altar wasn't wood. It looked like stone, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. The singing I'd heard outside began again, this time from beneath the floor. Soft, numerous. Voices layered together in a kind of wordless chant, growing louder with every verse. "Others here tonight?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just said, "When the ground opens, we listen." I stood. "Okay, thanks, but I'm gonna..." Before I could finish, a loud thump shook the building. Dust fell from the rafters. The candles flickered. Then the floorboards at the front of the church began to breathe. I swear to God. They rose and fell like lungs. The sound of whispering filled the air, dozens of voices speaking all at once. The man raised his arms. "They wake. The hollow ones remember your steps." Something cracked beneath the altar, a split in the stone, black and wet. The air smelled like rust and rain. I bolted for the door. But the pews had shifted. They weren't straight anymore. They curved inward, closing off the aisle like ribs. The candles flared tall and blue. Behind me, the man laughed, voice splitting and doubling and now echoing from under the floor. "You were called," it said. "They called you by the noise in your heart." I ran through a side door into the night. The desert air hit cold. I didn't stop until the church was a tiny glow behind me. Then I saw the graveyard. I hadn't noticed it before. Small wooden crosses, maybe 30 of them, all with the same date carved shallowly, Ayug 14, 1983. Every grave was sunken, like the ground had swallowed what lay beneath. Something moved between them. Figures. Thin, White shapes half buried, crawling out of the dirt. Their faces were smooth, featureless, but their chests pulsed, expanding and contracting like the breathing floorboards. Each one whispered a word that wasn't quite English. Harsh, dry, full of breath and sand. I stumbled backward, tripped, fell into the dust. When I looked up again, the church lights were gone. Total blackness. Then one by one, the candles inside relit themselves, but not orange this time. They burned red. I ran. I must have gone 2 miles before I saw headlights. A truck, old and battered. I flagged it down, gasping, trying to explain what I'd seen. The driver listened quietly, then said, "You sure about where you were?" "Yeah," I panted. "Church on Red Hollow Road." He looked straight ahead for a long time before saying, "That place burned down 30 years ago. Lightning strike. Everyone inside died. Pastor set the fire himself," they said. Whole congregation went with him. I laughed, couldn't help it. "No, I saw it." I was inside it. He didn't answer. Just turned up the radio, muttering a prayer under his breath. I didn't sleep that night. When I got my car towed the next morning, the mechanic asked where I'd broken down. I pointed it out on a map. He frowned. "Funny, my cousin used to work maintenance out that way. Said there's no road there anymore. Got washed out years back." He was right. When I looked later on Google Maps, Red Hollow Road ended 10 miles before where I'd been. But here's the thing that keeps me up now. Sometimes, driving late at night on the 58, I still see it, a faint orange glow on the horizon. If I pull over and listen, I can almost hear that humming again, the sound of 100 voices praying for something that isn't God. This is Dark Whispers. Remember, not every light in the distance is salvation. Some are just doors opening in the wrong direction. And if you ever find a church that shouldn't be there, keep driving. They already have enough souls. I checked into the Rosewood Inn on a Thursday night in January. It was raining. Real rain, the kind that smells like metal and oil. I'd been driving all day through the valley, trying to make it to Fresno before dark, but exhaustion got the better of me. The Rosewood sat just off Highway 99, a squat, 2-story motel that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. The neon vacancy sign was half dead, the A flickering weakly, so it read VCNC White. I went inside, dripping wet, and rang the little bell on the counter. After a moment, a woman appeared from the back office. Small, wiry, hair tied too tight. Her name tag said M. Holloway. "One night?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just passing through." She handed me an actual key on a metal ring. The tag read Room 119. Her hand lingered just a second too long when she passed it over. Her eyes were dark and unblinking. "Keep the door locked," she said, "and don't open it if you hear knocking." I tried to laugh, but she didn't. "People play pranks sometimes," she added quickly. "Kids." Room 119 was at the far end of the 2nd floor. The rain was hammering the walkway so hard it sounded like static. The room itself smelled faintly of mildew and old fabric softener. One queen bed, old carpet, a window facing the highway. I turned on the heat, tossed my bag on the chair, and called it a night. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone knocking on the door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Mrs. Holloway's words came back instantly. "Don't open it," I waited. After a few seconds, another 3 knocks. This time, softer, closer somehow, like whoever it was had leaned against the door. "Front desk?" I called, no answer. Just the rain and that steady dripping sound from somewhere near the window. Then a whisper, right next to the door. "Let me in." It wasn't a man's voice or a woman's. It was both, layered like 2 recordings playing out of sync. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knob turned, once, twice, then stopped, and the room went completely silent. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Then, softly, 3 knocks on the window. The next morning, the air smelled burnt, like old wood after a fire. The curtains by the window were damp. When I pulled them back, the glass was fogged from the inside, and written across it with a finger were 2 words, "Still here." I went to the front desk, ready to leave. Mrs. Holloway wasn't there, just a man in a worn jacket reading a newspaper. He looked up. "Checking out already?" "Yeah, room 119, someone was knocking all night." He frowned. "You sure? 119's been closed off for years." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "No, it's open." You rented it to me yesterday. He shook his head. Ma'am, this place hasn't had a 119 since the fire. That's when I noticed the plaque on the wall. Framed newspaper clippings yellowed with age. 3 dead in Rosewood Inn fire, January 14th, 1986. Below the headline, a photo of the building. The caption listed the victims. Couple traveling northbound. Young girl age 8. Room 119, the date, January 14th, today. I went back to the parking lot. My car was still wet from the rain, but the ground around it was bone dry. When I looked up at the building, the door to 119 was wide open. Curtains fluttering. I told myself I wouldn't look. I had to leave. But something, call it curiosity, call it whatever, made me climb the stairs one last time. Inside, the air was thick, damp. The smell of smoke stronger now. The bed was gone. Everything blackened with soot. In the middle of the floor, 3 handprints, one large, one smaller, one tiny and burned into the wood, and from the corner, faint but real, came the sound of someone breathing, slow, patient, waiting. I left without checking out. When I drove back by the highway a few weeks later, the Rosewood Inn was gone, just an empty lot fenced off with rusted chain link. But sometimes, on cold nights when the fog rolls through the valley, I still see it. The flickering neon, the soft light from the second floor, and if I slow down, I can see her, Mrs. Holloway, standing in the doorway holding a key. Room 119. I took the lighthouse job because I wanted to disappear. That's not something you tell a supervisor, of course. When the Maritime Restoration Board posted a listing for seasonal maintenance assistant Point Reyes Beacon, I told them I was a freelance writer looking for quiet. They didn't ask why all my references had disconnected numbers. The truth was simpler. I needed somewhere no one could find me. The lighthouse stood alone at the end of a cracked asphalt road, perched above a 100-foot drop into the Pacific. The nearest town, Inverness, was 10 miles inland, and most locals avoided the cliffs after dark. The fog rolled in thick and fast, swallowing the road, the rocks, sometimes even the sky. When I arrived that October, the place looked peaceful. The keeper's cottage had been restored, a small white house with green trim and a view that made you forget what year it was. The ocean stretched forever, horizon smudged into gray. The caretaker who met me, an old man named Lawson, looked carved from driftwood. "She's an honest post," he said, handing me the keys. "Lonely but honest. The light runs on a timer now, but check her at night anyway. The sea plays tricks." He paused, squinting toward the fog. "If you hear bells after midnight, don't look for them. That's what brings the fog in close." I laughed, but he didn't. He patted my shoulder and drove off, leaving me with the gulls and the wind. For the first week, it was paradise. Morning smelled of salt and coffee. I'd climb the tower stairs and watch the beam sweep the horizon. Evenings, I'd walk the cliffs and listen to waves hit the rocks below. There was no cell signal, no traffic, no past. Then came the bells. It started on the 7th night, a faint chiming beneath the surf. Not quite metal, more like something hollow struck underwater. I leaned over the railing, but the fog had rolled in thick and sound bends strange and mist. By midnight, the chiming grew louder, steady. 3 slow tolls. Pause, too quick, over and over. I went outside with a flashlight scanning the water. Nothing but haze and the slap of waves. But the sound felt close, almost in the air. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a light far out on the water. Not a buoy's blink, but a flicker, like a lantern swinging. Then it vanished. I told myself it was an echo from some ship's bell. I almost believed it. 2 nights later, I woke to footsteps in the tower. Slow, deliberate climbing the iron stairs. The cottage door was locked from the inside, but the sound came from the next room, up through the floorboards, metallic and wet. I ran outside. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the tower until I touched its base. The light above spun calmly, cutting faint paths through mist. But the steps continued inside. Clang, clang, pause. Each footfall echoed through the steel. I shouted, thinking maybe the Coast Guard had come unannounced, but no answer came. Then the bells started again, louder, 3 long, 2 short, and beneath it, just for a moment, a woman's voice, distant and broken by wind, whispering between the tolls. When I opened the tower door, the steps stopped. The staircase was empty. slick with condensation. But near the bottom landing, a trail of wet footprints led upward, bare feet, narrow, small. They vanished halfway up. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. By morning, the fog had lifted. The ocean looked innocent again. I told myself exhaustion was playing tricks. Isolation does that. But the next day, I found the photograph. It had slipped between two ledgers in the supply cabinet, an old black and white, edges curling. 4 lighthouse keepers stood on the same balcony I'd been on last night, grinning stiffly at the camera. Written on the back, in neat cursive, Point Reyes Station, 1939, the day after the wreck of the Marisol. One of the men in the picture was Lawson, younger but unmistakable. Standing beside him, half turned toward the sea, was a woman in a long oilskin coat. Her face was pale, her hair dark and wet as kelp. For a second, it looked like her eyes were opened too wide, black to the edges. Then it was just shadow. I set the photo on the desk. That's when I heard the faint dripping, not rain, inside the house. A steady drip, drip, drip from the corner near the door. When I turned, a thin line of water seeped from beneath the threshold, pooling slowly on the floor. The air smelled of salt and iron. I opened the door. Fog pressed against the porch like a living thing curling inward. And floating in that fog, just beyond the steps, was a figure. It stood motionless, head bowed, hair hanging wet across its face. The bells tolled once, twice, and the figure raised its head. The eyes were hollow, the mouth filled with water that spilled as it smiled. "Keeper," it whispered, "light the way." Then the fog swallowed it whole. I didn't go outside again until daylight. The porch was dry, no footprints, no water, nothing. The air smelled sharp and clean. For a few hours, I convinced myself it had all been a dream. But when I stepped into the tower that afternoon, the air felt heavy, charged. The metal stairs slick with condensation, though the sun was out. And the photograph I'd left on the desk was gone. In its place sat a rusted ship's bell crusted with barnacles. There was no way it had been there before. I hadn't even seen a bell in the storage logs. But there it sat, and engraved along the rim, faint under rust, were the words, Marisol, the same name from the photo. I touched it. The metal was cold, sea cold, like something dragged from deep water. My fingertip came away wet, and for an instant I heard a faint chime right beside my ear. I left it there and locked the tower. That night, the fog returned. It rolled in before sundown, thicker than ever, swallowing the cliffs. I lit the lanterns and stayed inside, listening to radio static. Around midnight, the bells started again, louder, closer, like under the floorboards. Then the door handle began to turn. Slow, deliberate. Through the window, nothing but white fog pressing against the glass. The handle scraped back and forth. "Don't open it," I whispered. Then the voice from outside. "Keeper, you have to light the way." Underneath it, another sound dragging along the porch. I backed toward the bedroom, but the lights flickered and went out. Only the lighthouse beam swept past the windows every few seconds. In those slices of light, I saw movement, a shape pressed against the glass, the outline of a face, pale and warped, water dripping down the pane. Then 2 hands, fingers splayed, nails blackened. Then nothing, a splash below the cliff. I ran to the window. The fog had thinned just enough to see the edge of the rocks. And far below, a shimmer of light beneath the surface, moving, glowing, like lanterns drifting underwater. The bells tolled again, 3 long, 2 short. And from the depths, figures began to rise, dozens of them, pale and slow, hair waving in the current. Faces turned upward, mouths open, eyes black. They drifted just below the surface, all looking toward the cliffs. Then I saw her, the woman from the photograph, from the porch, standing atop the surf like the water held her. She lifted one arm toward the lighthouse and screamed, but the sound came out as the toll of a bell. Every window in the house shattered. When I woke, it was morning. The floor was soaked. My watch was stopped at 3:07 a.m. The radio was dead, the bulbs blown, and the tower door stood wide open. The bell was gone. I packed my things, drove straight to Inverness and demanded to see Lawson. The clerk at the general store just stared. "Lawson?" she said. "Ed Lawson's been gone 10 years. Died out there during a storm. You must have met his nephew or something." I showed her the photograph. She looked, frowned, and handed it back. "That's Ed there," she said, pointing. And that's the woman, his wife, Marisol. She went down with the ship named after her. What ship? I asked. She looked at me like I'd asked if the ocean was wet. The Marisol. Wrecked in '39 right off the point. They say he kept hearing her bells after the storm. Drove him near crazy. They found him one night walking straight into the fog carrying a lantern. Never came back. I never went back to the lighthouse. I drove south the same day through San Francisco, through endless traffic until the air stopped smelling of salt. But some nights, when the world is quiet and the sea wind sneaks through the window, I still hear it. 3 slow tolls. Too quick. And sometimes, if I listen long enough, I can hear the whisper too. Keeper, light the way. It started with an ad online. Quiet cottage for rent in Petaluma countryside. 1 tenant preferred. Immediate move-in. The photo showed an old 1-story house tucked behind a row of pear trees, paint peeling. Porch light hanging by 1 screw. Rent was dirt cheap. Too cheap. But after months of job hunting and sleeping on my cousin's couch, I couldn't afford to ask why. When I called, a woman answered. Her voice was soft, older. "It's still available," she said. She didn't ask for references, just told me to bring first month's rent in cash and meet her by the orchard gate before sundown. The road out there was long and quiet, lined with broken fences and weeds as tall as my car. The sky was orange by the time I found the mailbox, its numbers half faded. 1137. Cypress Hollow Road. I parked by the gate and waited. She appeared a few minutes later. Thin woman in a long brown coat, silver hair pulled back tight. Didn't give me a name. Didn't ask mine. Just handed me an old-fashioned brass key and said, "You'll hear things at night. Don't answer them." I laughed awkwardly. "You mean coyotes?" She didn't laugh back. "Just don't answer." Then she turned and walked back toward the trees, vanishing into the orchard shadows. The house smelled like rain and something sweetly rotten. Pears, maybe, fermenting somewhere unseen. The floors were warped, and the wallpaper was bubbling off the walls in long yellow strips. I set my bag down in the living room, where the only furniture was a single rocking chair and an oil lamp on a table. The lamp was lit. I hadn't touched it. That first night, the house was quiet, almost too quiet. No power, no phone signal. Just whine through the trees and the occasional creak from the porch. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to what sounded like whispering outside my window. 2 voices, low, deliberate. "She's here now. Don't wake her yet." I held my breath, listening. The whispers faded, replaced by a soft dragging sound, like someone walking barefoot through wet leaves. When I finally looked outside, there was no one, just the orchard shifting in the wind. By morning, there were small pear cores scattered across the porch. Dozens of them, brown and shriveled. I swept them off, trying not to think about it. When I stepped back inside, I noticed something new, a framed photo on the mantel. 3 people, a man, a woman, and a little girl, maybe 6 years old. All smiling stiffly, eyes pale and flat. The odd thing was the photo frame was coated in dust, except for the little girl's face. That part looked freshly wiped clean. That night, the whispers came earlier and closer. I was lying in bed when I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy ones, then a knock at the door, 3 sharp knocks. I didn't move. The voice that followed was soft, childlike. "Can I come in?" The air felt cold enough to burn my throat. Another knock, this time right beside the bed. "Please," it whispered. "It's cold out here." I turned on my flashlight. Nothing, just the rocking chair in the corner swaying back and forth on its own. I barely slept. When daylight came, I decided to leave. I didn't care about the deposit, the rent, anything. But when I tried to start my car, it wouldn't even turn over. The engine was completely dead, and the hood was covered in pear blossoms. I didn't see any trees close enough to drop them there. That afternoon, I went walking through the orchard trying to find the old woman. The trees grew thick the farther I went, branches curling together overhead like ribs. After a while, I realized something strange, and every tree had carvings on its trunk. Names: Judith, Thomas, Lily, Aaron, dozens of them, etched deep into the bark. At the very back of the grove, I found one tree taller than the rest. At its base, half buried under leaves, was a small wooden box. Inside, a child's shoe, a lock of blonde hair tied with a blue ribbon, and a photograph. The same little girl from the mantel, standing in front of the orchard, but behind her, faintly visible, was someone else, a figure in a long brown coat, watching from the shadows. When I got back to the house, the door was open, the rocking chair had stopped, and all across the walls, carved deep into the plaster was a single phrase repeated over and over: "Don't answer her." That night, I locked every window and door, lit every lamp I had. Still, around midnight, I heard soft footsteps in the hall, then a little voice. "You found my tree." The lights flickered, the floorboards creaked under unseen. Wait, and then the sound of the front door. Opening footsteps, one set, two, three. The smell of pears filled the house, heavy and sweet and rotten. When I turned toward the doorway, she was standing there, the girl from the photo, pale, hair damp, dress soaked through as if she'd just come out of the rain. Her eyes were wrong, too dark, too deep. "You weren't supposed to look," she whispered. Behind her, through the open door, I saw the orchard, every tree swaying though there was no wind. And for a second, I could see faces between the leaves, all those names carved into the trunks, watching me. The girl smiled. They always answer. And then she took one step forward. The lamp went out. I don't remember how I got out of the house. All I know is, when I looked back from the road, the orchard was gone, just an empty field, no trees, no house, nothing. But I still have the brass key in my pocket. It's warm to the touch. And some nights, when I'm half asleep, I can hear something rolling across my floor, slow, steady, soft, like fruit falling, like someone walking barefoot through leaves. I'd been working as a track inspector for the Northwestern Pacific Line for nearly 15 years when I first heard about the Mendocino Run. Old-timers called it the Red Line, though it was never listed on any of our route maps. Supposedly, it used to carry timber and passengers back in the 1930s, before a bridge collapse wiped out half the route. According to the records, service stopped after that, but the story said otherwise. Guys on night patrol swore they still heard a train whistle around 2 a.m. some nights. Long, low, and distant. And if you were near the old viaduct when it passed, you'd see lights, pale white ones, gliding silently through the fog. They said if you waved, sometimes it waved back. I didn't believe any of it, not until last winter. The company had sent me up north to check erosion damage near the Navarro River, a stretch of abandoned track that hadn't been used since before I was born. The locals told me not to stay past dark. Things walk those rails after sundown. One man warned me at a gas station, his eyes glassy and dead serious. He said it the way someone might warn you about black ice, casual. But with that edge of fear, I laughed it off, thanked him, and drove on. The bridge was half gone when I got there, only a few skeletal beams left spanning the foggy ravine. The air smelled of rust and wet pine. I spent the day documenting cracks, taking photos, logging measurements. By dusk, the fog had thickened into a wall. I couldn't see 10 feet ahead. I was just packing up my tools when I heard it. A long, echoing whistle, faint, far off, then again, closer. At first, I thought it was some freight train from another line echoing through the valley. But the sound, it wasn't right. It was too hollow, too drawn out, like it was coming from underwater. Then came the vibration under my boots. The steel rails began to hum, dust trembling off the bolts. My flashlight flickered, and that's when I saw the light. A single headlamp, pale and flickering through the fog, moving down the dead track, straight toward the ruined bridge. I froze. Every instinct told me to run, but my body wouldn't move. The train came into view slowly, like it was surfacing from another world. An old red passenger car followed by 3 cargo wagons. Their paint long peeled and rusted, but there was no sound, no screeching of wheels, no engine roar, just that ghostly hum and the dim white lights gliding silently along rails that hadn't been connected for decades. As it passed me, I saw faces in the windows, pale, expressionless, lit by a cold blue glow. Men in suits, women in old dresses, a child clutching a teddy bear, all staring straight ahead. Not one of them blinked. Then for a fraction of a second, one of them, a woman near the end of the car, and turned her head and looked right at me. Her mouth moved. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read them clearly through the glass. Get off the track. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the rail. The train slid past, wheels phasing through rusted metal like smoke through fingers. When it reached the collapsed bridge, I expected it to fall, but it didn't. It just kept going, gliding over empty air, and vanished into the fog. The hum faded. The vibration stopped. I stood there alone, the night dead silent again. When I finally turned to leave, I noticed something glinting on the rail beside me, a silver pocket watch. Its face cracked. Hands frozen at 2:17 back in town. I told the foreman what I'd seen. He didn't laugh, he just said, "You shouldn't have gone out there alone." Then he told me the story. In 1938, the Mendocino run was carrying 37 passengers when the bridge collapsed beneath them during a storm. No survivors. The coin wreckage was never recovered, washed out to sea with the current. Every few years, someone claimed to see the red line again, usually near the anniversary of the crash, always around 2:00 a.m. No one who tried to chase it ever came back. I tried to put it out of my mind. Weeks went by. Then one night, while I was asleep in my apartment in Ukiah, I woke to a faint vibration, a steady hum, rattling the picture frames on my wall. At first, I thought it was an earthquake, but then I heard it, that same whistle, long, low calling, from somewhere outside. I looked out the window and froze. The street below was empty, but the fog was thick enough to glow faintly, as if lit from within, and moving through it just for a heartbeat. I saw it again, the red line, sliding silently past the street, sparks of pale light drifting behind it. In one of the windows, the same woman stared out, her face white as chalk. She raised her hand slowly and pointed upward, toward me. Then the fog swallowed it whole. The next morning, I found something outside my front door, a train ticket, old, yellowed, stamped with faded ink. Northwestern Pacific Railroad, Mendocino Run, seat 13B. The date printed on it was March 3rd, 1938, the day of the crash. I still have the ticket. It's sitting on my kitchen table right now. Sometimes when I touch it, it feels warm, like metal left out in the sun. And sometimes when I lie in bed, I hear the faint rattle of tracks under the floorboards. The walls tremble softly, as if something enormous is passing just beyond them. The clock on my nightstand always stops at 2:17, and if I listen close enough, I can hear the whistle calling me home. I took the ranger job at Mirror Lake because I needed quiet. After 21 years of city noise, a divorce, and a heart that wouldn't stop racing, I thought isolation would cure me. Mirror Lake sat 40 miles north of Redding, surrounded by pines so dense they swallowed the sun by mid-afternoon. The government built cabins there in the 50s for fire lookouts. By the time I arrived, only one was still standing, the caretaker's lodge, and even that leaned like it was tired of existing. The locals told stories. They always do. They said the lake had no bottom, that divers who went down never came back up, that on windless nights you could hear someone calling for help across the water. Even though no one lived within 10 miles, I laughed it off. You have to, or the silence eats you. The lodge was a single room, all warped wood and mildew. A generator coughed to life out back, powering one bare bulb and a radio that picked up nothing but static. The first night was uneventful, just crickets and the creak of trees adjusting to the cold. But on the second night, something knocked, not at the door, under the floor. 3 slow thuds spaced apart, like someone tapping from inside the crawl space. Then a wet dragging sound, traveling from one end of the cabin to the other. I told myself it was pipes, even though I'd shut off the water hours earlier. Morning erased it. The forest looked innocent again, sunlight glittering on the lake like broken glass. I spent the day hiking the perimeter, logging erosion reports, trying to ignore the way the trees seemed to lean toward me. When dusk came, I stood at the dock and watched fog slide across the water. It looked like breath, slow, rhythmic, then faintly I heard it, a voice, low, pleading, "Help me." It came from somewhere near the center of the lake. I scanned the surface, nothing but ripples. Still, the voice came again, louder this time. "Help me." I almost called dispatch, but my radio hissed and died. When I looked back at the water, I saw movement, a pale shape just beneath the surface, drifting closer, not swimming, floating. I ran, inside the cabin. The floor was wet. Trail of water led from the doorway to the spot. Beneath my bed I crouched and shone my flashlight underneath. Nothing there, just puddles reflecting, the beam-like eyes. Then the radio crackled. At first it was static, then words formed inside it, twisted through the white noise, my own voice, whispering, "Come back to the lake." I yanked the cord from the wall. The voice kept talking for 3 full seconds after the power died. That night I dreamed I was standing knee-deep in the water. Something cold brushed my leg. When I looked down, I saw hands, dozens of them, rising from the black beneath me, reaching, clutching, pulling. I woke up choking on lake water. The sheets were soaked through. Outside, frogs croaked in perfect unison, then stopped all at once, as if silenced by a single breath. On the 4th day, I drove into town for supplies. At the general store, an old woman at the counter stared at me like she recognized me. "You're the new caretaker," she said. "You should have asked what happened to the last one." She told me about Ranger Ellis, went missing 3 summers ago. Boat found drifting near the middle of the lake. Motor still running. They never found him, just his hat floating upside down, as if he'd looked over the side and someone had looked back. I laughed nervously. "Maybe he drowned." She shook her head. "Mirror Lake doesn't drown people. It keeps them." Back at the lodge, I found footprints on the dock, bare, small, leading straight out to where the water went dark. At the end of the line, something shimmered beneath the surface. I leaned closer. It was a face. My face. Staring up at me from below, eyes wide open. It smiled, then sank into the dark. I tried leaving that night. Loaded the truck, turned the key. The engine coughed once and died. When I stepped out, the lake was glowing faintly, pale green light swirling like northern fire under the surface. Shapes moved within it. Human shapes. I ran back inside and locked the door. The floor thudded again. Once, twice, then a splash like something climbing out of water. Moments later, the doorknob began to turn. I shouted, "Who's there?" The voice that answered was mine. "Help me." The door burst inward, and a wave of freezing lake water flooded the room. It hit my knees. Then my chest rising fast, I climbed onto the bed, flashlight shaking, beam cutting through the current. There were faces in the water, not reflections. Faces moving beneath the surface. Mouths open in silent screams. One of them was Ranger Ellis. Another looked like the woman from the store, and one looked exactly like me. It opened its mouth. Water spilled out, carrying my own words. "You shouldn't have answered." I woke up at dawn on the floor. The cabin was dry. The door stood open. Hinges rusted solid. Outside, the lake was calm again, mirror smooth. The truck started on the first try. I didn't look back. A month later, the forestry department shut down the site for structural hazards. They asked me to return the keys. When I reached into my pocket, I found something I hadn't put there. A small silver whistle, old, corroded, stamped with the letters E.E. Ranger Ellis's initials. That night, as I was unpacking boxes in my new apartment, I filled a glass of water from the tap. When I raised it to drink, the surface rippled once, though the air was still, and from deep within the glass, I heard it again, my own voice, "Come back to the lake." They say California doesn't have ghosts, just earthquakes, wildfires, and bad luck. But drive east out of Sacramento, past the orchards and the dry riverbeds, and you'll find a stretch of cracked asphalt called Red Hollow Road. A place so quiet it feels like sound itself avoids it. And halfway down that road, surrounded by brittle oaks and waist-high grass, stands a house that doesn't appear on any map. It looks normal enough, 2 stories, paint the color of dust, porch sagging under its own weight. But if you pull over and stare at it too long, something strange happens. The light seems to shift. The shadows move differently than they should, and if you listen close, you'll hear the faintest sound. Not the wind. Not insects breathing. When I first found the place, I wasn't ghost hunting. I was chasing a story. My name's Daniel Cross, freelance journalist, specializing in local legends, the kind of stories people whisper in diners but never write down. In 2022, a friend at the sheriff's department mentioned a series of disappearances out by Red Hollow. 3 and 5 years. Hikers, a photographer, one kid skipping school, all vanished near the same stretch of road. Each case dismissed as environmental exposure. But the part that caught me wasn't the disappearances. It was the detail buried in one report. Subject's vehicle found parked in front of an abandoned residence that does not appear on county records. That was enough for me. I drove out one afternoon in late October. The sky was a gray bruise, the air brittle with the smell of burning fields. The farther I went, the quieter it became, as if sound itself was fading. And then I saw it. The house. 2 stories of quiet rot, roof caved slightly, porch boards curling like old skin. A single rocking chair stood at the far end, moving ever so slightly, though there was no wind. I parked the car, grabbed my camera and started walking, every step closer. The air grew colder, not crisp, cold like a basement. By the time I reached the porch, my breath was visible. The door was half open. Inside, dust lay thick as snow, wallpaper peeled in long strips. A staircase sagged to the right, carpet eaten by time, and yet, there were footprints in the dust, bare, human, leading from the door to the living room, and then stopping abruptly, as if whoever made them had simply vanished mid-step. The smell hit me next. Damp wood mold, and something metallic. Blood, maybe. I lifted my camera, took a few photos. The flash reflected off something hanging in the doorway. A mirror. Tall, freestanding, frame warped with moisture. The glass wasn't dusty. It was clean, too clean, and when I stepped in front of it, I wasn't alone. In the reflection, I saw myself, but behind me stood a woman. She wore a faded white dress, her hair wet and stringy. Her eyes were empty sockets and her mouth was moving, forming words I couldn't hear. I turned around. Nothing. When I looked back, she was closer in the reflection, right behind my shoulder now. Her mouth was still moving faster. Then I heard it, a whisper, so close it felt like it came from inside my ear. Stay. The sound of footsteps upstairs broke the silence. Slow, heavy, each one followed by a soft dragging, as if something was being pulled. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I should have left. I know that now, but curiosity is a sickness. The stairs groaned under my weight as I climbed. At the top, a hallway stretched ahead, lined with doors, all closed, except one at the very end. It was moving, not swinging exactly, breathing. The wood flexing in and out with slow rhythm. I reached it, hand shaking, and pushed it open. The room was empty, except for the walls. Every inch of wallpaper had been torn away, revealing bare plaster covered in handprints, small ones, pressed so deep into the material they'd left indentations, each one smeared with something dark, something that flaked when I touched it. Then, from behind me came that whisper again, "Stay." I spun around, no one there, but now, in the mirror across the hall, the same tall mirror I'd seen downstairs, the woman was standing in the doorway, closer, her hands pressed flat against the glass, and this time, her mouth wasn't moving silently. I could hear the words, "You shouldn't be here." I ran, down the stairs, across the porch, straight to the car. When I turned the ignition, the engine refused to catch, just a hollow click, click, click. Something moved in the rearview mirror, in the back seat. A pale face, the woman. Her lips cracked as she spoke. "Stay." I threw open the door, stumbled out and sprinted down the road. Didn't look back until I reached the curve a quarter mile away. The house was gone, just tall grass and a dead tree where it had stood. That night, in my motel room, I went through the photos I'd taken. The house was there, clear as day. But in every picture, there was something else. Faint shapes in the background, standing just inside the door, behind windows, at the top of the stairs. And in the last photo, the one I didn't remember taking, I was in the frame, standing in front of the mirror. Behind me, the woman's hand rested on my shoulder. It's been 6 months. I moved back to Los Angeles, quit freelance work. But some nights I wake to the sound of slow, soft footsteps on the floor. And sometimes when I pass by a mirror, I catch a reflection that doesn't move when I do. Once, just before dawn, I saw her clearly, standing behind me in the bathroom mirror, smiling faintly. She whispered that same word again, "Stay." The next morning, I found a piece of paper under my pillow, old, yellowed, a property deed. Address, 11 to 27 Red Hollow Road, owner's name, Daniel Cross. People think ghosts haunt places. Sometimes that's true. But sometimes they find smaller homes, inside things we touch every day, things that remember us better than we remember them. When I moved into apartment 3B, I wasn't looking for much, just something cheap, close to the university. The building was a brown brick relic from the 1940s, sagging under decades of bad plumbing and cigarette smoke. It smelled like dust and radiator heat, but it was quiet. And quiet was what I needed. The landlady, Mrs. Howell, was at least 80, maybe older. She had paper-thin skin and a way of speaking that made everything sound like a warning. When she handed me the key, she said, "You'll hear things sometimes. Don't pay them any mind." I laughed. She didn't. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, a window that looked out onto a brick wall. The previous tenant had left behind some furniture, a wobbly table, a chair, and against the far wall, an old Underwood typewriter. It was the kind with round black keys and a heavy metal frame, the kind you could break a finger on if you weren't careful. A sheet of yellowed paper was still rolled into it. On it were 5 words, typed clean and centered. "Do not write on this." I smiled, thinking it was a joke. But when I tried to pull the page out, the roller jammed. The keys rattled once. Though I hadn't touched them, I should have thrown it away. But I was a writer, or at least trying to be, and that thing felt like a challenge. The first night, I couldn't sleep. Pipes clanked. Something dripped steadily from the ceiling, and faintly, through the walls, I heard what sounded like typing, soft, rhythmic. I checked the typewriter. It sat there, still, keys gleaming in the dim light. But when I looked down at the paper again, the sentence had changed. Now it read, "You shouldn't have touched this." I tore the page out, crumpled it, tossed it in the trash, rolled in a new sheet, thinking maybe I could use it for notes. When I pressed a key, the letter A, the metal arm jammed halfway up. When I pulled my hand back, there was a small cut on my finger just below the nail. The key's edge was sharp enough to draw blood. I wrapped my finger in tissue, muttered a curse, and went to bed. That night, I dreamed of typing, long, endless lines of words that weren't mine. When I woke, the cut on my finger was gone, but the typewriter wasn't empty anymore. Across the page, in black ink, was a new line. "I need your hands." I called Mrs. Howell that morning. She sighed before I even finished explaining. "Oh, that old thing," she said. "Been there since the 60s. Belonged to a writer who used to live in that unit. A real peculiar man. He passed while working on it." I asked how. She hesitated. "They found him at the desk. Fingers broken. Every one of them. The police said he did it himself." Then, in a quieter voice, "Don't type on it again, dear." That night, I unplugged the lamp, shoved the typewriter into the closet, and tried to forget about it. But around midnight, the sound started again. Click, clack, click, click, click. Ding faster than before. I pulled open the closet door. The typewriter sat on the floor, carriage sliding back and forth by itself. Keys struck in a blur, hammering out words faster than human hands could move. I stepped closer. The paper rolled upward, covered in sentences I didn't write. They all said the same thing. "I need your hands. I need your hands. I need your hands." I yanked the paper out. The keys stopped instantly, but the air in the room didn't feel still anymore. Felt like something was standing right behind me, Breathing against my neck, I turned. No one there, still. The faint smell of ink and iron hung in the air, and under it, something else, rot. The next morning, my hands ached, fingers stiff, knuckles sore, like I'd spent all night working. I checked the trash can, the crumpled page, the first one, the warning, and was gone. I checked the closet. The typewriter sat in the same place, silent. A new sheet of paper was loaded, 3 words typed neatly in the center. Thank you, Daniel. I never told it my name. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. Letters appeared on the table, written in my handwriting but filled with stories I'd never written. Neighbors said they heard typing at all. Ours one even complained about the clanging, metal noise coming from my unit, though I hadn't touched the thing since that night. Then I began to notice something else. The skin around my fingertips, the edges where nail met flesh, and was changing. Thin, metallic flecks beneath the surface, shiny, hard, and when I flexed my fingers, I could hear faint clicks. On the 5th night, the typing woke me again, but this time, the sound wasn't coming from the closet. It was coming from the bed. I sat up. The typewriter was sitting on my chest, its metal keys moving slowly, deliberately pressing against my skin like cold fingertips. It wasn't typing words anymore. It was spelling out one letter at a time. Help, and then, slowly, help me. Then all at once the keys jammed. The metal twisted, the carriage bent. The whole frame convulsed like something alive. The ribbon snapped. I shoved it off me and ran for the door. But when I grabbed the handle, it wouldn't turn. My fingers had fused to it. The metal from the handle and the tiny, shining flecks under my skin had melted together. Hot and cold all at once, I screamed, pulled hard, skin tearing as I ripped my hand free. Behind me, the typewriter sat on the floor, motionless. On the paper, one final line appeared and typed slow, like it was struggling. I have your hands now. I moved out that night, left everything behind. Clothes, furniture, even my car. I didn't care. Mrs. Howell didn't seem surprised when I dropped the keys in her mailbox. She just said, "You're the 3rd this year. It's been months." My hands look normal again. Mostly, except sometimes when I touch metal. I can feel a faint vibration under my skin, like something moving inside, and every once in a while, when I'm lying in bed, I swear I can hear it. Not in the apartment, not even in this city, just faint, far away, echoing through my bones. Click, clack, ding, and then my fingers twitch like they're trying to type. Welcome to Sierra Pines Lodge. There's a reason the county took that turnoff off the map. When I came up here, I was running from noise. My brother had died 6 months earlier, and the city felt like a wound that wouldn't close. So when I saw an ad for a winter caretaker job, 6 months of solitude, a small wage, room and board, I took it. Gerald Haskins, the owner, met me at a diner in Reno. He was one of those men who smiled without his eyes. "Just keep the generators running," he said, stirring his coffee. "If you hear anything strange, it's the pipes. Old wood likes to talk." I signed the papers that afternoon. The lodge stood at the edge of the forest like something waiting to be forgotten. 3 guest cabins, a main building, and an empty square of scorched earth where the 4th cabin had burned years ago. No one told me about that part. The first week was silence. Beautiful, heavy silence. Snow swallowing every sound. I fixed the fence, split firewood, and slept 12 hours a night. Then, around the end of that first week, I found a photo album in a desk drawer. It was wrapped in a towel, as if someone had tried to hide it. Inside were Polaroids from the early 1980s, smiling families in ski gear. Hot chocolate, the lodge behind them. Every caption said the same thing. The Milner family. 1983, 1985. The last picture looked wrong. The family stood in front of the fireplace, smiles stiff, eyes off center, as if looking at something behind the camera. And in the window's reflection, faint but unmistakable, a tall, dark figure stood in the snow. I told myself it was a trick of the light. The first snowstorm hit hard. The wind howled against the eaves like a living thing. Around 2 a.m., I woke to children laughing outside. Not wind, not coyotes. Laughter, thin and bright. I pulled on my boots and stepped outside. No voices, just snow glittering under the moon and a trail of tiny bare footprints leading away from the porch. They ended halfway to the trees as though the children had simply stopped existing. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. 3 days later, I went into the basement to check the water heater. That's where I found the wooden horse and small, red paint peeling, one eye missing. It was sitting on the concrete floor in front of the furnace like it had been waiting for me. When I picked it up, the air felt colder, heavier. I set it on the workbench, turned to leave, and heard wood creak behind me. When I looked back, the horse was gone. The hair on my arms stood up. I left the basement light on all night after that. By week 3, I started hearing footsteps overhead when I was downstairs. Deliberate, slow. I'd call out. No answer. Once, when I opened the front door, a gust of air rushed past me, carrying the smell of smoke and wet ash. The fireplace was cold. That night, frost formed on the inside of the windows, and on one pane, a handprint appeared, small, child-sized, with words traced beneath it in the melting frost. Still here. I hiked out to the burned foundation the next morning. The snow there had melted in a perfect circle, steam rising off black soil. I brushed away slush and found a twisted metal luggage tag. The engraving was half gone, but one word was clear. Milner. When I touched it, the ground beneath my boots gave off a faint, steady warmth, like something still smoldered below. That evening, I found the old guest ledger stacked behind the bar. Pages yellowed, dates running from 1980 to 1985. The handwriting changed halfway through, growing frantic. One entry read, "Voices in the vent again." Another, "Kids keep waking up crying. Say the woman's in their room." The final page, November 24th, 1985, said only, "If you find this, don't stay the winter. It keeps us here." The lights flickered. A dull thud echoed upstairs, one step, then another. Slow as breathing, I took my flashlight and climbed. At the end of the hallway, a door I'd never seen before waited. Cabin 4. But Cabin 4 had burned to the ground 30 years ago. The brass handle was ice cold. I turned it. Smoke rolled out in a thin veil. Inside, the walls were blackened, furniture melted shapes, frost blooming over every surface. In the center stood a table, and on it the red wooden horse. A woman's whisper drifted from the dark corner. "Please, don't wake them." I froze. She stepped forward, hair hanging in wet strings, dress scorched at the hem, skin pale as snow. Her eyes were gray glass. Then she looked past me to the floorboards. "Don't let them see you." The boards began to tremble. Knocking rose from beneath, faint at first, then furious. Wood split, and small hands reached through, grasping. Burned and black, I ran. I left before sunrise, snow still falling, my truck fishtailing down the mountain road. I didn't stop until Sacramento. For weeks afterward, I smelled smoke in my clothes. My phone camera roll was empty except one picture. Me on the porch of Sierra Pines, looking toward the tree line. In the window behind me, 4 dark shapes, a woman and 3 children, stared out. A month later, the news ran a brief story. 2 hikers missing near Donner Pass. Search canceled due to weather. In the background of the live shot, behind the reporter, was a flash of the lodge roofline. For one frame, just one, faces pressed against an upstairs window, white as snow. It's been a year. Every first snow around 2 in the morning, I hear 3 knocks on my apartment wall. If I ignore them, they stop. If I look, I'll see tiny wet footprints leading across the carpet and fading before they reach the door. I keep the red wooden horse locked in a drawer. Sometimes, when the night is very quiet, I hear it creak, as if rocking by itself.